Hey, it's John Feldmann from Goldfinger. You're listening to Morgan Richards on Radio Cardiff. Woo!
Hey, I'm Morgan Richards from Radio Cardiff, 90.7 FM, and I'm very pleased to say that I'm backstage at the Globe music venue here in Cardiff. I'm joined by a man that I can only describe as one of the biggest names in music after an incredible 35 years working with other artists and touring intensely with his band Goldfinger. It's of course producing royalty and punk rock Superman himself. It's the wonderful John Feldmann.
Look at that intro, man. That's intense. That's an intense intro. How old am I then? If I've been doing this for 35 years, what would that make me, like 70?
Hey John, how's things?
Things are good, man. Things are really good. The tour's been fun. Been in the studio nonstop for 20 years. So it's good. It's really good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's good. I mean, touring is, we haven't toured in 2 years. So the first show in Manchester was rough, man. It was like, I was so tired and I just there was no flow. Like when you get in the groove of touring, you kind of know when you can take a sip of water, when you can catch your breath, and when it's time to go stage dive, you know. But the first show, first song, I went all in 3 minutes and I was done. I'm like 3 minutes into the show, I was over. But we're all right now.
Yeah, okay. Oh, great to hear. So John, it's safe to say that you're an extremely busy man as of constantly working with other bands and touring intensely with your band Goldfinger for over the last 20 plus years, achieving some incredible things in that time. I'm sure to this day, really looking back at some of the things you've done both individually and with the band, it's quite overwhelming in achieving more as each day goes on.
I think it's Steve Jobs that says you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Nobody has a crystal ball to be able to tell the future. And I can certainly see how one project led to another. But, you know, I do believe in that rule of 10,000 hours. You know, if you're going to become a master of your craft, you spend 10,000 hours. And I think the Used first album, I guess that was 2002. I feel at that point I had spent 10,000 hours in the studio. So it was right around then that I think I had reached a peak in my career, discovering that band and working with this seminal, like a genre-defining act, you know. And I went and, you know, I'd produced my own band. I'd produced Show Off and Mess and a few other artists that never really got huge. But, you know, the Used were the first band to me that really like just took off, and it was a no-brainer that I was supposed to be producing records. But I didn't know I was supposed to be a record producer. I just always wanted to be in a band. I was in my mom's garage as a kid, just, you know, bashing it out, and I thought this was my destiny, just to be on the road and playing music for the rest of my life. And it happened. And I'm always looking ahead. Like, I'm always thinking about what's next. I'm never really, it's not a good thing. The good thing would be to be like, good job, you're doing great. But I'm kind of like, how do I beat what I've done? And how can I continue and go even bigger next time, you know? And but everything that, like, when I look at it, I was just on tour with Goldfinger in Utah, and the singer for the Used showed up on our bus with a cassette tape and said, "I love Goldfinger. What do you think of this?" And my tour manager picked him up and threw him off the bus, and I listened to it 2 days later, and I thought this is fucking amazing. And I called him and I flew him to Los Angeles. But had I not been, I mean, everything, like, you know, you can see how everything in life happens. Nothing happens by mistake, only by looking backwards. Like, you know, I worked retail selling shoes. And because I worked at that shoe store, I met the guy. I gave the guy that I sold a pair of Doc Martens to a cassette of Goldfinger, and he signed Goldfinger. From me selling shoes. If I wasn't selling shoes, I wouldn't have met him. And if I wasn't in Goldfinger, I wouldn't have met Bert from the Used. And if I didn't produce the Veronicas, I wouldn't have met 5 Seconds of Summer. It's not like any of these things were planned out. They just kind of like happened. And it's not like I'm some opportunist that says I'm going to abuse the situation. I just said, I know I can help. And for the most part, it's only come from me thinking I know I can help these groups. And then they've become something much bigger from that mindset of how do I be a service to this band, rather than how do I make money? Because as soon as I think of, because I worry about money like anybody else. I want to make money like anybody else. But whenever I look, if that's my primary goal, is to try and make money, I never make money. It always loses money. And whenever I do it for fun and for free, it works out.
And of course, as you mentioned there, you guys with Goldfinger hasn't toured properly for the last 2 years, where just recently you've been here in the UK as part of the Slam Dunk Festival and touring intensely around that after you unfortunately had to cancel last year's appearance at the festival. I'm sure to be back over this side of the pond and playing shows night after night has just been a great feeling, playing all the old classics with the band.
Yeah, I think we have one new song in the last 5 years. I think the last proper album we did was 5 or 6 years ago, Hello Destiny. So we are playing the classics on this tour. And last year, I got this jaw infection. I had to take a bone from my hip and put it in my jaw, and then they had to wire my jaw shut for 2 months. And that was right when Slam Dunk happened. So that's why we had to cancel it. I was gutted. I mean, that would have been such a great tour. But this tour has been fucking great.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been great. I mean, I feel like, our fans are getting older. It's not like we're releasing new music all the time, that we're gaining new fans all the time. It's kind of like whoever knows who we are shows up at the shows, but they seem to still show up, even though they're now in their 30s. A lot of our audience are getting older. So we're taking a lot of rests for all the old people so they can have a break in between songs rather than go 10 songs in a row. It's really just for me because I'm a pussy.
And of course, John, one of the main things I did want to mention to you was the fact that a lot of fans recently have been constantly asking you guys about new material, because a couple of years back you released a new single titled I Am Death in 2013, and around that time announced that you had been working on a new album in the works with that, but now 2 years later there still hasn't been any more word of maybe a new release.
Actually, fantastic question. It's really a fantastic question. And I don't really... the problem for me, and I know it's challenging for the other guys in the band too, the problem for me is my job now, it used to be only Goldfinger, and now my job isn't that any longer. And so, I have little kids that I'm supporting and I'm raising. And so when I have work, I work, and I've had a lot of work, which is, I'm so grateful for having so much work. And so Goldfinger is a fun, we're out here, this is like super fun, and this is, for me, it's a vacation from being in the studio. I was driving on the train today, and it's so green. We got this drought in California, and it's just, things aren't as green in California. California is lovely, and I love where I live. It's so beautiful here. And to me, I want to always see things in life to inspire songs and inspire songwriting and inspire what I do for a living, which ultimately is creating. I have to create something from nothing. And if I sit in the studio all day, every day, it's going to be the same thing over and over and over. And I come out here on the road, I talk to people, I'm talking to you backstage in Wales. I get new life experience, and I have a deeper well of creative energy, I think there'll be another Goldfinger album. It may be when I retire, or maybe next year. I've been saying 2 years for 5 years now, so I'm not going to say 2 years anymore.
Okay. But hopefully somewhere down the line there will be another Goldfinger release.
I hope so.
And John, just a couple more things really quickly now before you go. Of course, we've mentioned quite a bit about your producing career and the fact that you've worked on many big artists and albums over the last few years. But for me, I'd have to say, when you just look at some of the recent albums you've worked on, from the likes of All Time Low to 5 Seconds of Summer and Sleeping with Sirens, it's quite an incredible thing, because those records aren't just big albums by big name bands, but they're actually ones that top in charts worldwide and people are actually buying. It must be great, the fact that you're co-writing and producing these records and seeing the response with all these artists is just a brilliant thing. Yeah,
it definitely feels great. It's a great feeling to feel that I'm still connecting on some. I'm 47, and to feel like I'm still connecting with, I would assume most All Time Low audiences in their, teenage 20s. So to know that I'm still kind of like having a connection there feels awesome, I think that I've made so many albums that have influenced a lot of these bands' lives that it's a no-brainer for them to come to me. And I'm in a band, and I understand what it's like to tour. I understand what it's like to play festivals and see 50,000 people jumping. I know how to make an album that has a flow, an ebb and a flow to it. This is not all fast, not all ballads. It has like a rhythm to it. I don't know. I love making albums, and whenever I see one of my albums in the charts, it's fucking great. Of course, it's awesome to have that. I don't know. I get inspired. Alex Gaskarth is so different than Kellen Quinn. All these groups have different personalities. They bring things out of me that I don't know, make me a better writer, you know, and I learn things from them, you know, and hopefully I've written, I don't know how many thousands of songs in my life, but hopefully I can, you know, pass along some knowledge of like, hey, this is what I find works. You know, I mean, lately, the last 2-3 years, I've been starting with lyric and then melody and then music. And it used to be the opposite when I was 12. It was music, melody, and lyric last. And I've kind of flipped it. And it's really been huge for me to write songs that way differently. And I feel like when I learn things, I'm able to hopefully help these guys in bands that are much younger than me and that are still crushing it. And yeah, the All Time Low thing was I think it was a shocker for a lot of us. I mean, we're just like, I mean, they're a huge band. They're amazing. But to do what we did on that first week was like, man, I was really, really proud of that.
Okay, well, fantastic. And just quickly now, before we go, of course, we've mentioned you're going to be continuing to be busy really throughout the rest of the year. But now, what else does the future hold for both yourself and Goldfinger? Of course, people do want a new record, but what do you have planned now for things coming up?
And we're doing this rock fest in Canada next month. And look, I mean, it's kind of like, when they ask us, I mean, whenever, like, you know, we have a friend AJ and there's a Soundwave in Australia, whenever he kind of asks us, we go. Whenever Kevin Lyman asks us to do Warped, we say yes, you know. So I don't think we really go out there. We're not searching for tours. I mean, I think there's an inevitable tour in the future, like this I've been talking with Chris and with Aaron, Chris from Less Than Jake and Eric from Real Big Fish about doing a triple headliner. And I kind of opened the dialogue a little bit with Dickie from the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones, and I think there'd be an awesome tour to be had with those bands, you know, just like an all Ska-Punk festival. I don't know, I mean, I think I've got like 4 albums like on deck, so I'll be in the studio for the rest of my life, forever and ever.
Well, that's about it. Cheers, John, for taking time out to have a quick
Thank you very much.
No worries. Best of luck now with everything else in the near future, and hopefully I can catch up with you again very soon.
Cheers.